Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the Galactic Council station, her reflection ghosting against the crystalline viewport. Beyond, the purple-tinged nebula of the Orion Arm stretched like spilled ink across the void. 10 years of representing humanity in this gleaming tower of alien democracy, and still the view took her breath away. But today, that beauty felt like a mask hiding something far uglier. The data cube in her hand felt heavy despite its negligible weight. Within its quantum memory, evidence of atrocities that threatened to shatter a decade of carefully cultivated peace waited to be revealed. Sarah's fingers tightened around the cube as she recalled the encrypted transmission that had arrived just hours ago. The images were burned into her mind. Human colonists, hundreds of them, suspended in green preservation tanks in a hidden Zarkax facility. Official manifests listed them as volunteers for medical research. The reality was far darker. They'd been taken, farmers, miners, children, from remote colonies along the Perseus Arm. The Zarkax called it necessary research into Deathworlder physiology. Sarah called it what it was: torture. A soft chime announced a visitor. Sarah didn't need to turn to know who it was. The subtle clicking of chitness legs against polished floor announced Diplomatic Minister Texerin of the Zarkax Consortium, long before he spoke. Ambassador Chen, the tall insectoid's translator, rendered his clicks and whistles into smooth galactic standard. You requested an urgent meeting. Sarah turned, keeping her face neutral despite the revulsion churning in her stomach. Texerin's 4 primary arms were held in the traditional pose of diplomatic greeting, his secondary arms folded behind his iridescent carapace. The gesture was meant to convey openness and peace. Sarah now wondered how many similar gestures had been lies. Minister, she nodded, activating the data cube. A hologram sprang to life between them. Medical charts, transport manifests, security footage. Would you care to explain this? The Zarkax's compound eyes reflected the rotating images. His antennae twitched once, the only sign that the reveal had affected him at all. Ah, he said, his translator rendering the sound with artificial calm. I see you've discovered our medical research initiative. Research. Sarah's voice could have frozen hydrogen. You're conducting illegal experiments on kidnapped civilians. There are children in those tanks, Minister. Ambassador, surely you understand the necessity of understanding Deathworlder physiology. Your species' remarkable resilience could hold the key to advancing medical science for all council races. These subjects are well cared for, I assure you. Subjects. Sarah took a step forward. Despite being half Texerin's height, she didn't flinch as his shadow fell over her. They are citizens of the Earth Federation. Return them immediately, or this evidence goes before the full council. The Zarkax's mandibles clicked rapidly, their equivalent of laughter. My dear Ambassador, by all means, bring this to the council. But consider carefully. 6 of the 9 high counselors have invested heavily in our research. Do you truly believe they'll act against their own interests? The casual admission of corruption hit Sarah like a physical blow. She had suspected, of course. Hints and whispers had reached her office over the years. But to hear it stated so brazenly. Then you leave us no choice, she said quietly. Us. Texerin's antennae waved dismissively. Ah yes, the famous human threat of force. Ambassador, let us be honest. We've observed your military capabilities for a decade. Your ships are adequate for colonial defense, nothing more. The Earth Federation chose diplomacy because it had to. You lack the strength to enforce your demands. Sarah smiled then, a small, cold expression that made Texerin's antennae freeze midwave. Minister, there's something you should understand about humans, something that 10 years of peaceful cooperation seems to have made you forget. She took another step forward, voice dropping to barely above a whisper. We didn't choose diplomacy because we're weak. We chose it because we're strong enough to show restraint. Don't mistake that restraint for inability. Is that a threat, Ambassador? Texerin's translator couldn't quite capture the mix of amusement and condescension in his clicks. No, Minister. It's a courtesy warning. Return our people, end these experiments, or discover exactly why humans are classified as Deathworlders. Sarah turned back to the viewport, a clear dismissal. You have 48 hours to comply. After Texrin left, Sarah activated her quantum-encrypted communicator. The connection was brief, the message shorter still. Operation Reminder is now authorized. They chose the hard way. As she watched her reflection in the viewport, Sarah thought about the classified reports she'd read concerning Earth's true military capabilities, about the fleets kept hidden in dimensional pocket space, the weapons that could reduce planets to ash, the armies of mechanized infantry that had never been revealed to the wider galaxy. For 10 years, humanity had played nice. They'd joined the Council, followed the rules, built trust through trade and cultural exchange. They'd even allowed other species to believe they were militarily weak, knowing that perceived weakness could be a powerful shield. But now, the Zarkax and their corrupt Council allies had crossed a line. They'd taken human children, treated human lives as disposable resources for their experiments. They'd mistaken humanity's civilized restraint for the absence of teeth and claws. Soon, they would learn just how costly that mistake would be. Sarah closed her eyes, whispering a prayer for the imprisoned colonists. "Hold on," she murmured. "Help is coming." Opening her eyes again, she watched as a seemingly innocent cargo ship undocked from the station's commercial bay, right on schedule. Commander Hayes and his special operations team would be at the first Zarkax facility within hours. The galaxy was about to learn why every species that had ever tried to conquer Earth had gone extinct. Some lessons, it seemed, had to be taught the hard way. The Helios Ascendant looked like any other independent merchant vessel plying the trade routes between Council worlds. Its hull bore the scuffs and patches of decades of honest work. Its transponder broadcasted the unremarkable history of a ship that had never done anything more exciting than haul industrial polymers between star systems. That was exactly how Commander Marcus Hayes liked it. Deep in the ship's hold, Hayes finished checking his phase armor for the third time. The cutting-edge suit looked nothing like the outdated military hardware Earth showed the galaxy. Its adaptive camouflage could bend light. Its quantum-linked AI could hack alien systems in microseconds, and its strength amplification could let him tear through battleship armor with his bare hands. Final briefing, he announced to the dozen operators prepping around him. The Zarkax facility on Nexus VII is officially a pharmaceutical research center. Intel shows the human captives are being held in Sublevel 3. Primary objective is confirmation of location and condition of prisoners. Secondary objective is data retrieval on wider conspiracy. Rules of engagement are silent unless compromised. "Sir," Lieutenant Santos spoke up, her dark eyes serious beneath her helmet visor. "What if the captives are in immediate danger?" Hayes met her gaze. "Then we get loud. But remember, we need to prove Council involvement before we can go full offensive. Earth Command wants this by the book." A soft chime in their neural links indicated they'd entered the Nexus system. Right on schedule, alarms blared through the ship. "Attention." The ship's AI announced on all frequencies. "Engineering casualty. Requesting emergency landing clearance." Hayes allowed himself a small smile. The Zarkax were arrogant, not stupid. A direct approach to their secret facility would have triggered every defense they had. But a crippled merchant ship, leaking plasma and asking permission to land at the nearest port, that was just an inconvenience to their day. "Surface Defense Control is buying it," Lieutenant Chen reported from his neural interface with the ship's systems. "They're directing us to landing Pad 7. It's actually perfect, only half a kilometer from the facility's eastern entrance." "Helios, initiate blackout protocols," Hayes ordered. Immediately, every surveillance system within a 2-kilometer radius began experiencing subtle malfunctions. Nothing obvious enough to trigger alarms, just enough digital noise to blur faces, corrupt footage, and create gaps in security logs. The landing was textbook messy, thrusters sputtering, emergency vents hissing steam. their ship's VI doing an Oscar-worthy performance of barely controlled descent. They touched down hard enough to rattle teeth, exactly as a failing ship would. Port authorities dispatching a tech team, Chen reported. Estimated arrival, 12 minutes. Hayes nodded. Plenty of time. Wraiths, you have your vectors. Execute. 12 figures shimmered and vanished as their phase armor engaged. Only the subtle distortion of air marked their passage as they exited the ship through quantum-shifted hull plates, another technology humanity had kept carefully hidden. Hayes moved east, his helmet's enhanced vision cutting through walls and showing him structural weaknesses, power conduits, and patrol patterns. The Zarkak's guards never noticed the invisible predator slipping past their secure perimeter. The facility's electronic security was a joke to their quantum infiltration suites. Hayes almost felt embarrassed for them as his team ghosted through doors, past sensors, and between security checkpoints. The Zarkaks, like most council species, relied too heavily on technology they thought was unbeatable. They reached sub-level 3 without raising a single alarm. That's when everything went sideways. Commander, Santos' voice was tight in his neural link. We've got a problem. This isn't just a holding facility. They're processing them. Hayes accessed her video feed and felt ice form in his gut. The holding tanks they'd seen in the intelligence photos were just the beginning. Massive medical arrays filled the chamber before them, their purpose all too clear from the partially dissected human corpses visible through observation windows. They're not researching our physiology. Chen's voice shook with rage. They're weaponizing it, looking for ways to engineer our environmental adaptations into their own species. Hayes forced down his fury, forced himself to think tactically. Chen, start data extraction. Santos, locate surviving prisoners. Everyone else, prepare for contingency Omega. If they've already started processing subjects, we're shifting to direct action. A new alert pinged in his neural link. Ambassador Chen's voice, tight with urgency. Commander, be advised. Council security forces are mobilizing. Someone tipped them off. You have maybe 20 minutes before they lock down the entire system. Hayes swore softly. Universe just loves making things complicated. He switched to team frequency. Change of plans. We're going loud. Rescue who we can. Grab what data we can. Then introduce the Zarkaks to some Deathworlder hospitality. The team acknowledged with clicks in his neural link as they moved into assault positions. Hayes drew his pulse rifle, another piece of restricted human technology, and allowed himself a predatory smile. Chen, initiate facility lockdown. Seal all external doors, trap their security teams where they are. Santos, get those prisoners prepped for emergency quantum extraction. Everyone else. He chambered around. Remember your training, but feel free to let them see exactly what they've been poking with a stick. The next 18 minutes became a demonstration of why taking humans captive was a terminally stupid idea. Phase-armored operators appeared and disappeared like ghosts, their advanced weapons cutting through Zarkak security forces like paper. Those few aliens who managed to fire back found their energy weapons splashing harmlessly off quantum-shifted armor. Hayes personally led the charge to the primary research lab, where they found the lead researcher frantically trying to purge databanks. The Zarkak's mandibles clicked in terror as Hayes materialized before him, armor covered in the iridescent blood of security forces. Please, the alien's translator squeaked. We were just following orders. The council insisted. Save it for the tribunal, Hayes growled, before rendering the researcher unconscious with a precise strike. Chen, tell me you got everything. Full data extraction complete, sir. And sir, you need to see this. The authorization codes, the funding trails, this goes way beyond the Zarkaks. At least 12 major council species were involved. Archive everything. Multiple secure channels. Hayes turned to Santos. Status on survivors. 28 rescued, sir. Being quantum shifted to medical ships now. But There are over 200 dead. Hayes stood silent for a moment, absorbing that number. Then he opened a channel to the Helios. Deploy the beacon. Sir, Chen questioned. That will let everyone know. Exactly. No more shadows. No more playing nice. Hayes watched as a small device materialized in the center of the facility, its quantum core beginning to pulse. Let them know exactly who they're dealing with. As his team extracted, Hayes took one last look at the facility. The beacon would transmit everything. The experiments, the authorizations, the deaths, to every communications network in Council space. No more deniability. No more diplomatic games. The Helios broke orbit just as Council security ships began arriving. Hayes watched through the quantum-linked feeds as they approached the facility, no doubt expecting to find evidence cleanly eliminated. Instead, they found a message, written in Zarkak's blood across the facility's main landing pad. Humanity is done playing nice. The beacon activated, and the truth began to spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Phase 1 was complete. Now came the real war. The emergency session of Earth's Security Council was being broadcast across every human settlement in known space. The chamber's ancient walls, dating back to the pre-space era, had never seen such fury. Fleet Admiral Helena Reyes stood at the podium, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic displays showing the full horror discovered on Nexus VI. Behind her, representatives from every human world watched in stony silence as she delivered her report. 237 dead, she stated, her voice carrying the weight of each lost life. Men, women, children, taken from our outer colonies for what they called research. The youngest victim was 8 years old. The chamber erupted in shouts of rage. Admiral Reyes waited for the fury to subside before continuing. For 10 years, we've maintained the facade they expected. We let them think our ships were merely adequate, our weapons primitive, our military small. We played the part of the grateful newcomers to their galactic community. She gestured, and new holograms appeared. Financial records, communication logs, shipping manifests. Thanks to Commander Hayes and his team, we now have irrefutable proof. This wasn't the action of a single species. The Zarkak's facility was funded by 12 major council races. 6 high councilors personally authorized the experimentation program. In the diplomatic quarter of the council station, Ambassador Chen watched the broadcast from her office. She'd already been quietly recalled, her staff evacuating under the guise of a routine rotation. The Zarkaks and their allies still thought they had time to cover their tracks. They were wrong. Her quantum comm chimed. Ambassador, Hayes's voice was grim. Strike teams are in position across council space, awaiting final authorization. Sarah looked out at the purple nebula one last time. Confirmed, Commander. Implement Operation Reckoning. Across human space, hidden shipyards shed their quantum camouflage. Vessels that had never appeared on any council registry emerged from dimensional pockets, not the modest patrol ships humanity had shown the galaxy, but titans of war. Each carried weapons that could crack planets, shields that could shrug off solar flares, and crews who had trained for this moment for a decade. On the colony world of New Eden, Governor Maria Santos watched the emergency broadcast with her fists clenched. Her daughter had been among those found in the Zarkak's tanks. The news that she'd died during processing had arrived an hour ago. Governor, her aide interrupted softly. The phantoms are ready. Maria nodded once, sharply. Below her office, hidden bunkers opened to reveal rows of mechanized infantry units, quantum-powered battle suits that made their public military hardware look like children's toys. New Eden, like every human world, had been preparing for this possibility since first contact. In high orbit above Earth, Admiral Reyes watched as the first wave of the true human fleet emerged from quantum space. The sight would have struck terror into any council species if they could have seen it through the advanced stealth systems. All commands, this is Fleet Actual. She broadcast on the secure quantum network. You have your targets. Priority 1 is securing and evacuating any surviving human captives from known facilities. Priority 2 is containment of Council military assets. Rules of engagement are as follows. No civilian casualties. No planetary bombardment without direct authorization. We're here to excise a cancer, not become one. The responses came in from fleet commanders across Council space. Acknowledged. On the Council station, Minister Texerin was enjoying his evening meal when the lights went out, not just in his quarters, but across the entire diplomatic sector. When emergency power activated 30 seconds later, he found Ambassador Chen sitting calmly across from him. "I warned you," she said simply. 48 hours. You chose not to listen. The Zarkax's mandibles clicked rapidly as he reached for his security beacon. Nothing happened. "Oh, that won't work," Sarah said, almost kindly. "None of it will. You see, Minister, while you were all congratulating yourselves on how well you'd contained the primitive humans, we were learning everything about your technology. Every weakness, every backdoor, every flaw." Texerin's translator rendered his next sounds as a nervous laugh. "Come now, Ambassador. Surely we can discuss this reasonably. Perhaps some compensation for the families." "They took children," Sarah interrupted, her voice like ice. "They took them apart to see how we survive on high-gravity worlds, how we resist radiation, how we process toxins. They recorded their screams for data analysis." She stood slowly. "There will be no discussion." Through the viewport behind her, Texerin watched in horror as the station's supposedly impenetrable defenses powered down. Quantum signatures bloomed across local space as humanity's true fleet decloaked, not the few dozen ships they'd previously displayed, but hundreds, thousands. "We're not here to conquer," Sarah continued. "We're not even here for revenge. We're here for justice. The corrupt council members will face trial. The facilities will be destroyed. The truth will be known." She smiled, and there was nothing kind in it. "And you, Minister, will help us ensure that nothing like this ever happens again." At that moment, across Council space, humanity's hidden strength revealed itself. Quantum-shielded troops secured research facilities. Advanced warships neutralized defense fleets with weaponry that shouldn't have existed. Corrupt officials found their secret records exposed, their hidden wealth seized, their carefully built power structures crumbling. A new message began broadcasting on all frequencies, in all languages, to all Council species. "For a decade, we showed you our hand in friendship. You chose to interpret that friendship as weakness. You chose to violate not just our trust, but the most basic principles of sentient rights. That ends today." In the Council chamber, as security forces fell to human quantum troops and corrupt counselors were led away in restraints, Sarah Chen delivered the final word. "Let this be a lesson to all who would mistake humanity's patience for weakness. We chose peace not because we had to, but because we should. We chose diplomacy not because we couldn't fight, but because we understood its value. Today, you learn why Earth was classified as a death world. Today, you learned the price of mercy. The galaxy would never be the same." High Admiral Kovacs of the Zarkax Defense Fleet had always prided himself on understanding warfare. His species had fought and won conflicts across 3 spiral arms. Their tactical computers could predict enemy movements with 99.8% accuracy. Their weapons could crack moons. Their shields could withstand supernovas. None of that mattered when the human fleet arrived. The first sign that something was wrong came when half his sensor network simply stopped responding. Not damage, just gone, as if it had never existed. The second sign was when his supposedly unhackable quantum-encrypted communications began broadcasting human military channels. "This is Admiral Helena Reyes of the Earth Federation Navy," a calm voice declared across every frequency. "Your defensive capabilities have been neutralized. Your weapons are locked down. You have 5 minutes to surrender before we demonstrate exactly why humans evolved on a planet that kills 99% of non-native life forms within hours." Kovacs chittered orders to launch their automated defense platforms. Nothing happened. He commanded their planet-killer weapons to target the human fleet. The systems didn't even acknowledge him. For the first time in his long military career, High Admiral Kovacs felt true fear. The human ships weren't the crude vessels they'd shown the galaxy for the past decade. These were something else entirely, sleek predators of black metal and pulsing quantum fields. Their hulls seemed to drink in light itself, making them look like holes cut in reality. And there were thousands of them. 4 minutes, Admiral Rice's voice continued pleasantly. In the Centaurian sector, the Mexil Confederation attempted to mount a resistance. They launched their entire defensive fleet, 10,000 ships strong, against a single human battle group. The resulting engagement lasted exactly 6 minutes and 43 seconds. Human vessels simply ignored Mexil weapons. Energy beams passed through them as if they weren't there. Kinetic rounds disappeared into quantum fields and emerged traveling in the opposite direction. Missiles detonated harmlessly against shields that operated on principles no council scientist had ever imagined. The humans didn't even bother destroying the Mexil ships. Instead, quantum fields enveloped entire battle groups, shutting down their systems and leaving them floating helplessly in space. A message played on endless loop through their stuck-open comm systems. Your leadership authorized experiments on our children. But unlike them, we don't punish the innocent for the crimes of the guilty. On the Zarkak's homeworld, High Admiral Kovacs watched his countdown tick away. 4 minutes became 3. 3 became 2. He tried everything. Emergency protocols, hidden weapon platforms, even the forbidden technologies they'd reverse-engineered from captured human subjects. Nothing worked. With 30 seconds remaining, Kovacs did something no High Admiral had done in 10,000 years of Zarkak's history. He surrendered. The human response was immediate. Surrender accepted. Prepare for boarding and detention. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. Any attempt to destroy evidence will be prevented. You will assist in identifying all individuals involved in the experimentation program. As quantum-armored human troops materialized directly onto his bridge, another impossible feat, Kovacs finally understood. The humans hadn't been showing restraint for the past decade. They'd been giving the galaxy a chance to prove it didn't need to fear them. Across council space, the pattern repeated. Human forces appeared from nowhere, using technology that shouldn't exist to systematically dismantle the military capabilities of every species that had participated in the conspiracy. But they didn't conquer. They didn't pillage. They didn't even kill unless forced to. Instead, they secured evidence. They freed prisoners. They exposed corruption. And they broadcast everything. On 1,000 worlds, beings of all species watched in shock as the truth was revealed. They saw the laboratories where human children had been dissected. They saw the financial records proving their leaders' complicity. They saw the casual cruelty with which supposedly civilized beings had treated thinking, feeling creatures. But they also saw something else: human restraint. Forces capable of ending entire civilizations instead took care to minimize casualties. Troops with the power to level cities instead worked to protect civilian populations. A species with every reason for revenge chose justice instead. In the galactic core, the remaining uncorrupted council members watched in stunned silence as human forces systematically dismantled the most powerful military alliance in known space. Not through overwhelming destruction, but through such complete technological superiority that resistance was literally impossible. We could have done this at any time. Ambassador Chen's message played across the council chamber. We could have conquered. We could have destroyed. We could have taken revenge for every slight, every dismissal, every contemptuous assumption about our capabilities. Instead, we chose peace. We chose cooperation. We chose to be better than our strength would allow. Her voice hardened. Remember that choice. Remember this moment. Remember that when humanity extended its hand in friendship, we were offering you a gift. the gift of not having us as enemies. Some of you chose to spurn that gift, to take our restraint for weakness, to treat our people as lab specimens. A new hologram appeared, the faces of every being who had died in the experiments. Look at them. Remember them. Because your civilization's future was decided the moment you chose to put children in those tanks. The moment you decided that scientific advancement was worth their suffering. In his flagship's command center, Commander Hayes watched the synchronous surrender of 11 different species' military forces. The 12th, the Emxel, was still floating helplessly in space, their ships trapped in quantum bubbles. "Sir," Lieutenant Santos reported, "final casualty numbers from Operation Unleash. 3 human injuries, all minor. No hostile fatalities except in cases of direct fire against rescue teams. 87 additional human captives recovered alive from various facilities. All evidence secured. All conspirators identified and detained." Hayes nodded slowly. "Broadcast final message to all frequencies." Across the galaxy, beings of every species heard the transmission. "Let this be the last time anyone mistakes human kindness for weakness. We are not peaceful because we have to be. We are not diplomatic because we can't fight. We are not merciful because we are afraid. We are peaceful because we choose to be. We are diplomatic because we value cooperation. We are merciful because we understand that power without restraint is nothing but barbarism. Remember this day. Remember why it happened. And remember that next time, there might not be any mercy left to pay for." 1 month after Operation Unleashed, the rebuilt Galactic Council chamber hummed with tension. Representatives from over 200 species filled the tiered seats, their attention fixed on the central platform, where Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before the newly installed Circle of Justice. The changes were immediately visible. Gone were the ornate thrones that had elevated high counselors above their peers. Gone were the private chambers where corrupt deals had been made. The new chamber was transparent, literally and figuratively, its quantum-linked systems broadcasting every proceeding to every world in council space. The evidence has been reviewed. The Chief Justice, a Tellarite known for his unimpeachable integrity, announced. The verdict is unanimous. All 47 defendants are found guilty of crimes against sentient beings. Sarah watched as the former council members and research directors were led away. Minister Texerin's mandibles clicked rapidly as he passed her, his translator off, his pride finally broken. She felt no satisfaction, only a deep weariness at the cost of reaching this point. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Chen," the Chief Justice announced. "You may present humanity's terms." Sarah stepped forward, her voice carrying to every corner of the galaxy. 10 years ago, humanity joined this council with hope. We believed in the promise of unity among the stars. We believed that different species could work together, learn from each other, grow together. She paused, looking around the chamber. That belief was tested. It was betrayed. But it was not broken. Holographic displays activated, showing the new structure of galactic governance. The Earth Federation proposes the following changes to Council law. First, the establishment of the Sentient Rights Accord. No species may be subjected to experimentation without full, informed consent. No children of any species may be used for research under any circumstances. Violations will be met with immediate military response from all signatories. Murmurs of agreement filled the chamber. The horror of what had been done to human captives had shocked even the most hardened species into supporting reform. Second, the creation of the Technology Exchange Initiative. Humanity will share certain advances, medical, agricultural, environmental, with all council species. But make no mistake, our military technology remains our own. We are not withholding it out of spite, but because history has shown that power must be earned, not given. She gestured, and new holograms appeared, showing human ships helping rebuild damaged worlds, human medical teams treating aliens injured in the conflict, human engineers helping restore systems damaged during Operation Unleashed. Third, the formation of the Deathworlder Advisory Council. Earth was not the first death world to produce sentient life, merely the most recent to join galactic society. We propose an alliance of all Deathworld species to ensure that the unique perspectives and capabilities of those who evolved in extreme environments are never again misunderstood or misused. In the military sector of the station, Commander Hayes watched the broadcast while reviewing final casualty reports. The numbers still amazed him. A galaxy-spanning military operation that had resulted in fewer deaths than a typical Earth traffic accident. It was perhaps the most eloquent statement possible about humanity's true level of advancement. Finally, Sarah continued, we propose the responsibility protocol. Great power requires great restraint. Any species seeking to join the Council must demonstrate not just technological achievement, but ethical development. The ability to destroy must be matched by the wisdom to choose not to. She straightened, her voice growing stronger. Some have asked why humanity didn't respond with the same cruelty shown to our people. Why we didn't exact revenge. Why we showed mercy to those who showed none to us. The answer is simple, because that is what makes us human. We evolved on a world that taught us both strength and compassion, where survival required both the ability to fight and the wisdom to cooperate. We learned that the greatest power isn't in weapons or technology, but in the choice to use them wisely. A new hologram appeared, the face of every human who had died in the experiments, but now paired with images of schools, hospitals, and research centers being built in their names. We will remember. We will honor their memory not through vengeance, but through progress. Not through destruction, but through creation. Their legacy will be a galaxy where such crimes are impossible, not because of fear, but because of understanding. In the depths of space, Earth's hidden fleets resumed their quantum-cloaked patrols. On 1,000 worlds, humans worked alongside aliens to build a better society, and in laboratories across Council space, ethical oversight committees enforced new protocols that put sentient rights above scientific advancement. The old Council members had thought they understood power. They had thought it lay in weapons, in technology, in the ability to take what they wanted. They had never understood that true power, the kind humanity possessed, lay in the ability to hold back, to show mercy, to choose peace even when war was justified. Let this be remembered, Sarah concluded, not as the day humanity showed its strength, but as the day the galaxy learned wisdom. Not as an ending brought by force, but as a beginning created by choice. We are the children of Earth, inheritors of a world that taught us both fury and compassion. And we choose, always, to be defined not by what we can do, but by what we choose to do. The chamber erupted in applause, not the polite acknowledgement of diplomacy, but the genuine response of beings who had glimpsed a better way forward. As Sarah looked out over the assembled species, she saw something she hadn't seen in years: hope. On Earth, Admiral Rice stood at her favorite viewport, watching ships come and go from the solar system. Some carried diplomats to the new council. Others transported scientists to joint research projects. Still others moved goods between worlds in an expanding network of trade. Was it worth it? Her aide asked quietly. Rice thought of the children they'd lost, the price paid to reach this point. But she also thought of the futures they'd saved, the wars they'd prevented, the understanding they'd forged. Ask me in 100 years, she replied, when we see what grows from the seeds we've planted today. In the purple-tinged nebula of the Orion Arm, a new chapter of galactic history had begun. Humanity had revealed its strength, but more importantly, it had demonstrated its wisdom. They had proven that true power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the choice to create, not in the capacity for violence, but in the commitment to peace. The Deathworlders had stopped playing nice, but in doing so, they had taught the galaxy a better way to play.